Wonderful day, wonderful day, wonderful day. This again is your neighborhood sensei Fouché, telling all y'all to stay woke, relax, and take notes. Primarily, what we deal with here and now is identifying your true self and regaining your own value and power. Well, how do you do that? Constant application in giving yourself constant value in entertaining self-love. And disallow yourself from the validation and throwing away your gift to these manipulative outside people or things. In the last conversation, I was talking and using reference in the movie The Invention of Lying. And I'm just going to go back to that for a quick second. If I didn't mention in the last conversation, which I'm sure I mentioned in the conversation prior to that one, covering chapter 1, this whole society in this movie were based on, again, insecurity. And as truthful as this existence spoke itself, the insecurity still weighed in a process of unhappiness or uncomfortableness. Basically faking the funk, you know what I'm saying? But the one aspect out of that film which started to identify with the halfway point was the acknowledgement of truth and truth of self. But with the twist of the seed planted by the evil in you, it decided to create a story and a fiction based off of the lower level of your emotional humanity. When you are unaware or become negligent into your moral code, and your foundational boundaries, you submit power to the outside forces that are trying to penetrate for your control. Which you willfully concede. And one thing I always talk about, and we're going to get into the heart and meat of the power of now. But one thing I cover in general in life, we all mention, are problems. Now, I speak in terms of being solution oriented as opposed to problem based. What I realized is I create my own problems by how I choose to deal with the rants or random opinions of someone else. Let me give you an example. So about maybe almost close to 2 years ago, in a personal situation, and in this situation, a specific individual decided to, what was the word I thought of before? Oh man, I can't think of it right now. It started with an M. Meddle. Decided to meddle in my personal home affairs. So upon me addressing in boundary speech towards this individual and them feeling angry in regards to the fact that they couldn't control that situation because the other involved party, they have a history of controlling them. But since I am more personally involved with this other individual, they figured they could run train right over me as well. So I spoke in very strong standard speech, and upon holding ground, their attack and using defense for their insecure, manipulative self was to wish me to hell. Of course, go to hell. Guess what? My response was, thank you, but no thank you. I've already been there. But if you're willing to go back yourself, you could go the other way, opposite of how you came. Because I don't deal with people like you. I know you through somebody else, and then you being a problem decided to try to infiltrate and control my power. And once I disallowed you in doing that or trying to do that, you were enraged that I did not submit. So then you tried to slander in order to have me submit by having me, or hoping that I would convince myself that the value you feel I am by your statements, I should accept and fall back into. Right. Maybe for an individual who hasn't discovered himself, that probably would have worked. And I would have externalized, stewed, and thought of different tactics to retaliate, which makes me fall back and victim into exactly what they were hoping to create. Was an emotional, uncontrolled response based on rage. In another situation, maybe about close to a little less than a half a year ago, another individual that is personally in close relation to me decided to tell me that since I did not agree with them not respecting my feelings, that I would not do well. And the only way that I will be doing well is if they wished it for me. But if they didn't wish it for me, then I guess I am supposed to externalize, stew, and live beneath their validation of failure. Which leads me to another book, which we're going to cover a little bit later. And I'm full of books, you know what I'm saying? Because references are important in order to continue to explain the line and the consistency of the line being in accordance of forward. Not merry-go-round of circles. I'm not amused in child activity or thought processing. So keep the merry-go-round. I don't want it. Well, hold up. Let me introduce. One of my daughters, I mentioned in one of our conversations in question to a Christmas gift, knowing that I've been following and collecting these books that I've been absorbing. So in a random share of the books I was interested in, this is the one that she bought. And this is the one that I last covered before she bought it. The Courage to be Disliked. Ichiro Kashimi and Fumitake Koga. Excerpt from a chapter, and we're just going to cover a small bit because this book is not in our main cover, but it will be at a later point. All problems are interpersonal relationship problems. Now, what does that mean? It basically, in generic term, states that all problems begin with the problem you have with yourself and your insecurities or lack of courage into creating boundaries and having a moral foundation and code. So because you're frustrated with not being able to express or feel comfortable in feeling how you feel and who you are, then through that uncomfortableness and not knowing how to express that, you use frustration. And then through frustration goes, anger and venting and, the whole merry-go-round of the problem wheel, the language of the problem wheel. All problems are interpersonal relationship problems. If all interpersonal relationships were gone from this world, which is to say, if one were alone in the universe, like Tom Hanks in the movie Castaway with the volleyball. Here we go again with the volleyball. If all interpersonal relationships were gone from this world, which is to say, if one were alone in the universe and all other people were gone, all manner of problems would disappear, right? Because people are the problem. I hate people. I hate people. I hate people. It's the people. It's the people. Yeah. People are people. People are people. We get that. You know what I'm saying? We don't need to focus on who they are. Why are you putting so much energy into them? Instead of keeping your own energy and trying to figure out some form of confusion, you ain't trying to figure you out and you your own mixed up Rubik's Cube. Of course, we cannot do without interpersonal relationships. A human being's existence in its very essence assumes the existence of other human beings. Living completely separate from others is in principle impossible. As you are indicating the premise, if one could live alone in the universe, is unsound. And we'll be done with this for a moment. If you get rid of people and don't want to deal with people and you deal with isolation, then what do we have? Loneliness. You want specific type of people, but you want to get rid of everybody because you don't like people. And the reason why you're going to get rid of everybody other than the specific people who relate to your rage is because things that don't agree with you will not connect to you. We already know that. That's common understanding. So you want happiness, but you angry, but then you so full of rage that you rage at people that are happy because you're jealous of the fact that they're not happy. I mean, you're not happy and they're happy. So you're jealous. But they're authentically happy. And that's what you want. But you brush them away by your own externalizing and minimizing your true self into the created character to protect your insecurities of immaturity. Now, when are you going to wake up? The power of now. A guide to spiritual enlightenment. And this is just one of many. But this one came up first just by ironic coincidence. You want to hear about a change of fortune? I know I was an angry person, extremely negative and dismissive, and would make it my point to physically or in indirect body language or direct verbal communication let you know that I was going to make it my choice not to like you just because I knew that I was very guarded in my anger. The thing that happened today and also happened a year ago in another story would have never happened. But I had the most wonderful and encouraging engagement with a stranger who gave me the highest of accolades of acknowledgement. And all I did was walk in being happy. Because when I think of every second and every moment, I remind myself that that's what I want to identify with, because I don't want to go back. I have a restraining order that's endless in distance with misery. And if misery don't know it, I will continuously remind it, because I keep it on hand to remind them if they choose to come somewhere within the area of my proximity. Stay back, not interested. So The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle. This is the book that I've been reading out of in reference to something that I already figured out within me. And I'm radiating. Sharing for the common understanders. But I'm radiating. Do you hear the full passion? This is how serious I am about this help, because I used to be very, very, very connected to words like disappointment, anger, depression. I didn't know or think if I deserved anything, or if anybody even deserved, or if I deserved even having or wanting anybody. Trust me, I get it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not some dude that had everything given to him. I had everything taken away. And through that, I started to really seek and think deeply and discover exactly, to question what the hell you got going on and who the hell are you? Consciousness, the way out of pain. Nobody's life is entirely free of pain and sorrow. Isn't it a question of learning to live with them rather than trying to avoid them? Translation. Problems are always going to be around. Negative people, if you want to label it that, are always going to be around. Miserable people, whatever. It ain't about who they are. It's about what you choose not to do in relation to what they want to be. The pain that you create now is always some form of non-acceptance, some form of unconscious resistance to what is. It doesn't matter why they are the way they are. They are the way they are. Why try to figure out somebody else's Rubik's Cube when your own cube needs to stay in line? You start ignoring what you got going on, and then your whole thing, somebody else plays around with your whole cube, and then you get all mixed up. The intensity of the pain depends on the degree of resistance to the present moment. And this in turn depends on how strongly you are identified with your mind. When you identify more with that immature, insecure self, you will continue to go through the displeasure. The intensity of the pain depends on the degree of resistance to the present moment, and this in turn depends on how strongly you are identified with your mind. The mind always seeks to deny the now and escape from it. It doesn't want to face reality. It wants to continue to hide and have its insecurity validated by its immaturity. The more you are able to honor and accept the now, what is, the more you are free from pain, of suffering, and free of the egoic mind. You're trying to figure out somebody else's life and master their thoughts and why. They ain't even trying to figure that out. So why are you trying to figure it out? It's their job to figure that out. And you need to focus on your Rubik's Cube, because when you wind up neglecting your own self, your own being, there are a lot of dirty hands that want to touch your cube and mix it all up. The mind, to ensure that it remains in control, seeks continuously to cover up the present moment with past and future. And so, as the vitality and infinite creative potential of being, which is inseparable from the now, becomes covered up by time, your true nature becomes obscured by the mind. When you don't deal with the now and you start dealing with what used to be and what you want to be or could be, you forget about the moment. You become blind and confused, and what would we call that word I always use? Nostalgia. Nostalgia. I'm not a big fan of nostalgia at all. I don't like nostalgia. I used to love it, reminiscing. When they reminisce over you, man, look. Honor and dwelling are two different things. To dwell over something and to honor something which is no longer in existence is two different approaches and two different outcomes. A sentimental longing of wistful affection for the past, typically for a period or place with happy personal associations. It's a noun. And it's only temporary, because something always has to move forward. It's never going to be exactly the same. Things are always evolving or changing, and you have to change along with the movement of the now. How to stop creating time? Realize deeply that the present moment is all you ever have. Make the now the primary focus of your life. Always say yes to the present moment. Why not now? You don't know whether a bus is going to come by and clip you. Not to say that that's going to happen or any ill will is going to be wished upon anybody. But why worry about it? Why are you thinking about dying when you should be focused on living? Don't you like living? Don't you want to live? So why are you focused on something that hasn't happened or not paying attention to the moment of being happy? Every moment that you take choosing to be angry is a moment missed towards a moment of what you are thinking towards, which is the end or the future. The future is closer to a time to the end of your existence. And it's not even truly in existence because it's not even in being at the moment. The past is no longer around. Anything related to something that doesn't agree from before, why hold on to it? And some people think it's, well, why should you, just hold on to the fact that I did you wrong and then, just forget about it and let's move on. No. That is not honoring and valuing my worth, because by you devaluing my being, you don't honor my feelings. So why should I hold on to you? I need to get rid of you. Because you're going to continuously find different ways of doing the same thing. Why? Because I validate that by honoring your disrespect and giving you power by continuing to engage with you, somebody that doesn't value and treats me and thinks of me in the form of having less value than them. Their value is more than mine. And for them, that is their own figuring as far as how they honor themselves realistically. But if you don't honor others in equal or greater or of the greatest honor as yourself, then you really don't understand value, and you will devalue everything and everybody around you, regardless of whatever you have. It is as it is. Observe how the mind labels it and how this labeling process, this continuous sitting in judgment, creates pain and unhappiness. Accept, then act. Whatever the present moment contains, accept it as if you had chosen it. Always work with it, not against it. Make it your friend and ally, not your enemy. Basically, it's like prepare as if you expected for that to be. Because anything could be what it is just by knowing in the percentages that most people live in validation and devaluation. So it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? When you know what it is, then you should be able to be beyond that moment or those people's frame of being or thinking. You so locked into who and what you are and being that whatever world of confusion that they whip into their own realm, shouldn't break down those brick structures that you have formed in identifying your I. Instead of playing around with straws and sticks. The mind, to ensure that it remains in control, seeks continuously to cover up the present moment with past and future, and so, as the vitality and infinite creative potential of being, which is inseparable from the now, becomes covered up by time. Your true nature becomes obscured by the mind. The old Ghetto Boys song. Your mind's playing tricks on you. When you start to conjure up these insecurities and let them build to the highest of manifestation, you will be blinded towards your own inner light. It will be dim and harder to find the more that you obscure and neglect it. So, how to stop creating time? Realize deeply that the present moment is all you ever have. Make the now your primary focus. Always say yes to the present moment. We already read that, so let's keep going. That was just a reminder point. The pain body, which is the dark shadow cast by the ego, is actually afraid of the light. Why? Because when you identify with your I and no longer with the insecurity and that devaluating self, it will lose its place and no longer exist. Misery, again, loves company. Misery needs to feed off of those things in order to have its strongest existence. So if you go away from that thought processing, that negative thinking, that anger, that rage, then it will diminish and become subordinate. It is afraid of being found out. Its survival depends on your unconscious identification with it, as well as on your unconscious fear of facing the pain that lives in you. You are afraid to reach back into that very sensitive area of your life that troubled you. You have to face that inner child and heal it. And that doesn't mean to go back in time into that feeling, but from the outside of having a sense of compassion, talk in a conversation to that inner child, speak to it in an identified adult, mature exchange, and let it know that it's okay to let go and let you move in its future moment or the now moment, because for them, your now is their future. If you don't face it, if you don't bring it to light in your unconscious, and your consciousness in the pain, you will be forced to relive it again and again. Repeat, if you don't face it, if you don't bring the light of your consciousness into the pain, you will be forced to relive it again and again. So the pain body doesn't want you to observe it directly and see it for what it is. The moment you observe it, feel its energy field within you and take your attention into it, the identification is broken. Unconsciousness creates it. Consciousness transmutes it into itself. Everything is shown up by being exposed to the light. And whatever is exposed to the light itself becomes light. That's basically honoring your truth. And in honoring your truth, then you are redeemed. Just as you cannot fight the darkness, you cannot fight the pain body. Trying to do so would create inner conflict and thus further pain. Watching it is enough, which means just know it for what it is and no longer identify with that being. You need to know to let it be and discontinue feeding it. Watching it implies accepting it as part of what is at the moment. Basically, lock it away and leave it for what it is. And free the real you, which the manipulative you has kept submerged. But now you need to submerge and have that character submit into operating below your highest self. The pain body consists of trapped life energy that has split off from your total energy field and has temporarily become autonomous through the unnatural process of mind identification. It's on autopilot. It's used to doing what it's doing, cycling into anger and negativity and insecurity. It has turned in on itself and become anti-life, like as an animal trying to devour its own tail. When you start to disidentify and become the watcher, the observer, not the reactor, because that immature self is the reactor. The mature self is the observer and the watcher, the master. The pain body will continue to operate for a while and will try to trick you into identifying with it again. Although you are no longer energizing it through your identification, it has a certain momentum, just like spinning a wheel that will keep turning for a while, even when it is no longer being propelled. As long as you stay in connection with identifying with your highest self at every opportune moment that clown character creates an opportunity to try to control, The more you identify with your highest of self, eventually, when you don't give it any more fuel, eventually it's going to stop. It's going to run out. It's going to die. So don't worry about continuous worry. Think and focus on continuous solutions and health and happy. And if you continue in that direction, think of how long you have focused on angry and where that led you. So if you focus every moment on happy, as many moments as you focused on angry, there will be a most notable shift more immediately as opposed to maybe never. And never is only by your choice of application or neglect. We have more coming. Time is forever. And right now, I'm delivering the spiritual guide of enlightenment, talking about now, giving you back your power. You do not have to feel obligated into giving yourself away to something else that you don't know, that really doesn't respect and identify your highest honor. It wants to take more from you than you choose to give it. This is your neighborhood Sensei Fouché, telling all y'all to stay woke, relax, and take note, and really think about how much you really mean it when you try to convince other people, knowing that you really don't love yourself, and you want to, and you should. And I'm telling you to do it. Not tomorrow, not later tonight, not after the next few drinks, not after the irrelevant blunt. Right now. Be smooth. 1.